This show is brought to you by Databril, the scalable Amazon PPC management for large Amazon sellers and brands. Visit sellersessions.com/agency for more details. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Today we bring back Will Tjernlund. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing great. I'm here I'm at a beach house, and you can't really see, but in Portugal for the time being. I've been speaking at Amazon conferences all over Europe, so I'm been talking with all the best and brightest minds, including Danny. So I'm all ramped up and ready to go.
Sounds good. I mean, I bumped into you. Obviously, we always bump into each other on the road, but plus we've got the agency together. But we were in Germany together. But then you went off to Kiev, and where was it?
Romania.
And so was Kevin King there at those two as well?
Yeah, Kevin King was at both of them, I believe.
Yeah. Cool. So you've had fun, and you're in Portugal now. How long when you returning back to the US?
I fly out at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Nice.
So this is my very last day here. I've been here for the entire month. It's with Airbnbs, you get the whole month. They usually have like a 20-30% discount. So I stayed an extra week to get the last week free, basically.
Sound good. Cool. Right. Today, guys, what we're going to talk about is consumable products. Obviously, you've got the issue where people are selling Me Too products. And what me and Will want to talk about today is kind of covering things where there are barrier to entries or perceived barrier to entries. And the fact that, being able to sell a product to someone multiple times makes a big difference. And I think what happens is people get really scared of going into certain categories like grocery or topicals and stuff like that because they think it's too hard. But I think when you go for the least path of resistance on Amazon, that's where your threats come into play with hijacking, lots of competition. So sometimes it's better to have a bit of a pain point to go into. So, Will, you've sold some consumables. You want to give me your thoughts on this? Yeah,
I believe my brother's still selling it. It's a brand called USA Filament. And we started this probably in 2014, and it is 3D filament for 3D printers. And so it comes in different colors. All the spools it looks kind of like this kind of like thread, plastic thread, and it comes in kilogram packages. And there's ABS plastic, PLA plastic, ABV plastic, I think is one of them, PVA plastic. And yeah, it was one of the things where I saw that the market was still young. No one had over 100 reviews. I just assumed more people would be 3D printing the next year than the year before, and just kind of kept thinking that and extrapolating it out. It's only going to get bigger. It seemed like during this kind of gold rush, during the time, there's all these 3D printing articles I was reading, that this seemed like an easy way to get into it because I know nothing about 3D printing. I don't know anything I can't sell 3D printers. Good luck sourcing those from China. That's going to be very difficult. But the filament is just chunks of plastic, and it's fairly easy. And at the time, I think it cost about $5 per kilogram landed, and people were getting between $25 and $30. And so, and as me and Danny are going to explain this further, one of the things I knew we had to get down was beautiful packaging and beautiful branding. Most of the time, I'm the last person to be talking about packaging and branding. That's not something I focus too much time on. Once they bought the product, great, good, I made my money, then see it later. But with the 3D filament, if you give them a good quality product and you get it so that it actually like helps them and they think it's really good, they might buy your stuff forever. And a lot of our customers were like corporations and universities, where if we get them to buy a few spools, they might end up buying 1,000 spools in the lifetime of them being a customer. So we knew it was very important for us to get really nice packaging, and we knew it was important for us to have a really nice website too. So how we did it was, first and foremost, we ordered a bunch of different spools. We had a 3D printer at the office, and so we would test them all out, kind of print different things, see the quality. And then for the first kind of shipment we got in, which wasn't very big, we didn't go with the custom packaging yet, and instead bought very large, really nice stickers to put on that had the UPC code, had our logo, had it describing this as 1.75 ABS yellow or whatever the specific product was, because we didn't really know what sizes, what colors, anything, what style would sell the most. And so luckily we found a good supplier that let us order about like 20 spools of like every variation ever. And so we weren't confident enough to get really nice packaging and really figure all that kind of stuff out yet, because we didn't even know what style sold. And as we got through it, we figured out more and more. We switched suppliers once. One of our suppliers actually flew out to Minnesota to meet with us to describe how good their plastic was. And so like doing stuff like that, going above and beyond, it was an interesting experience. But yeah, knowing that you need to really wow the customer every single time they buy it, because a lifetime customer is worth so much more than a one-time customer. It really kind of changed my perspective on how the whole consumable type products work.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. There's a couple of things I wanted to chat about on this side. Obviously, I've just moved in, testing out some products in the topicals area. But one thing I did go into last year to experiment with, I didn't stick with it, but it was just, I was playing around in that category, and I've got clients who are also in this category as well. But moving into grocery, it's quite a difficult one in theory to set up, but it's not that difficult. Obviously, it's gated. The problem you're going to have is dealing with food with temperature. You're going to be dealing with sell by date, safety. There's various different paperwork regulations to take into consideration, but that actually works out as a positive, because you think about it. Let's just say, the average new Amazon seller coming into the game, they go and get Jungle Scout. They fish from the same pool. They go and order from China. They're testing the product. They don't put any packaging, wrap it around it. And then suddenly they get hijacked, and then they're out the game, or they've chose a competitive category, which is Me Too. And there's all these issues that they face, and it obviously puts them off on selling on the platform. But if you were to break down something like grocery, what's the most difficult parts here? So yeah, you're going to have disposable goods there where they run out of date. So you need to keep an eye on how you're ordering. The big thing, I think, what people are scared of is the ungating process. But to be honest with you, it's not that difficult, but you just put your hand in your pocket. I'll give an example. If you want to just ungate in grocery, go and buy some products from a wholesaler and actually sell them on Amazon. And then if you're doing a private label, or you're doing a coexisting deal with another company to sell their products, then list them products onto Amazon after. Now, what Amazon do, because we're just with the topicals thing, they actually phoned our manufacturer and cleared all this on the phone. So don't do fake receipts or anything. It's really straightforward. Go and buy a few cases of something. They say you're selling food. Buy some biscuits and odds and sods. Buy a few cases. Then list them as bulk on Amazon. Don't worry about making money out of them. That's completely irrelevant. Whack up a cheap listing, run a bit of PPC on it, sell it at a really desirable price, lose a bit of money. So it might cost you, say, 100 to 150 quid in total, which isn't a lot of money in the grand scheme of things if you want to go and launch your own coffee or your own coconut oil or whatever products you do. So I think it's very important that people see a perceived barrier to entry, but the barriers to entry, yes, they are real, but I think what happens is people glaze over them. It's the same with topicals. There's obviously the legislation in topicals is a lot harder in the UK. You have to have things like PIF files. There's 3 elements to it, and it can be quite complex to really try and understand it. And there are people selling on Amazon that are not legislated properly. But if you get the paperwork in place and you get your pricing right, it can be quite effective, because you can then move into doing subscribe and save. Now, another thing that you can do as well, people are always talking about moving off Amazon. And the biggest problem that they find when they're trying to move off Amazon is driving enough traffic to make it worthwhile, cost effective, even at break even, to bring new traffic into the platform. Now, if you're selling on Shopify, ideally, you don't want to keep paying out for that customer. So let's just say that you put together your own private label product that's a consumable. Then when it comes to selling off of Amazon, you've got a head start of all the other guys that are selling on Amazon that are not selling, selling one-off products that, like a spatula, people are not going to come back and repeat buy on a monthly basis. That's also going to put you in good stead for the future. So what you're starting to do is you start to build a moat around what you're doing.
No, I 100% agree. Some interesting input I heard from some of the guys who were out here in Romania and Ukraine. 2 of them had sold their businesses in the last year for about $20 million. So these were some high-powered sellers. They know what they're doing. And one was in the supplement space, and the other one was in the beauty space. And a problem that they ran into that I didn't even think about, both of them had to hire people full-time to just basically fill out plan of actions all day, every day. They knew that every one of their listings was selling thousands and thousands of dollars worth a day. And that the second that they're down, they need to have someone on it immediately to build a plan of action. And even though if you sell 1,000 units a day, if one person says, hey, I think it made my skin kind of red and it's irritated, Amazon doesn't play any games, and they'll take your listing down until they figure out what the problem is. And so that's one more kind of drawback, but always, like Danny was just saying, drawbacks are also moats. Yeah. And so other people aren't going to want to deal with that. Other people are just going to say, hey, I've been suspended 5 times in the last 6 months, or they've taken my listing down 5 times in the last 6 months. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Where all it took is someone to have kind of a templated Word document written out saying, hey, we realize this is a problem. We take full responsibility for this problem. Here's the 5 steps we're taking to fix it. Please let us know if you need any more information.
Yeah. And I mean, product liability insurance is another one you want to make sure you're covered for in topicals as well. But yeah, but that's the thing, is that I encourage people, look for those moats, look for those areas, because it's the 80-20 rule, you know, but people can be lazy with it, or they're scared of going into it because they don't know. It's the unknown, and it's another issue that they've got a hurdle they've got to jump. But I think if you're looking for longevity in business, ideally you want to be in a situation where you've got a USP of some kind, or it's a pain point for others to join. Because the common theme is that people might moan that, you know, the Chinese are taking over, they're hijacking the listings and stuff like that. If you're selling food and topicals, you're going to get less competition there from the Chinese than you will if you're selling slabs of plastic. Because they're always going to beat you with a shit stick, aren't they? Whatever you do. And, you know, it's in the nature of Chinese sellers to go hard and go at a low price for a long time to wear out the market until they own it, grandfather themselves in, and then raise the price. But, you know, people that are smart enough, like if you're in topicals, do they really want something that's sat on the ocean for 8 weeks? They don't. So the chances are they're going to buy your brand over, say, an international brand that's, you know, it's been sent over on a boat. So another thing that you look to as well, which I think people miss out on, is looking at manufacturing closer to home. So domestic manufacturing. Again, if you do that, you've got more control over the product. You can say made exclusively in the US or the UK or wherever it may be. And that's going to be another advantage point in terms of your USP to build your brand around. Against obviously overseas sellers.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I can't agree with you. And I can't agree with you enough about trying to manufacture it locally first and foremost. One of our clients we just signed on, they sell a consumable product that you actually like eat. And I asked them, yeah, where is this made? And they say, yeah, it's, the product is made in Minnesota, and then it's canned in Minnesota at a different canning facility. And you go, wow. So first and foremost, it's a lot easier to get through all of the hoops that Amazon makes you jump through, because these are US-based companies. They have all the paperwork. They're 100% legit. And then on top of that, he can actually go to the actual facility and taste the different flavors that he's coming out with, see how it looks ahead of time, all that type of stuff. That would just be impossible. You don't want to be flying over to China every week to see how the product's going. And so, yeah, it probably costs him a little bit more, but people trust him that much more because it's made in the U.S. He can charge a higher ticket price because it's made in the U.S., and he has that much more quality assurance. Another thing about kind of a little bit of a offshoot of what you're saying earlier about moats. Something my brother has been always really good at is staying on top of all the different government regulations. He is always sitting there. I don't know where he gets his information, but he's reading through stuff here and there. And so we've sold a bunch of radon accessories in the past. And they're constantly changing what the different radon stipulations are, and what considers dangerous radon and not dangerous radon, and if you can vent it out the top of your house or the side of your house, and all of these weird rules that normal people would never, ever think about. But my brother sits there and like studies this stuff and is able to stay on top of the game and be the first one on Amazon with all the right regulations and be perfect on there. And it's just kind of playing a different game than everyone else is playing. And yeah, the sales might not be as big, but they're higher ticket price items, and no one can piggyback on your listings because no one's jumping through all the hoops that he is, even because the majority of the hoops are kind of like invisible hoops that he had to look up personally.
Yeah. What's the guy with the eclipse glasses? It was Brock. is it Brock Johnson?
Brock Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, so for him, I think one of the things that stood out for him and why he was able to be super successful with that product as well, because he'd done all the legislation stuff up front. Everyone skipped that. So when they were all dropping like flies on Amazon and being banned, he had the right documentation. So it allowed him to take up the share of the market. I don't know exact numbers, but I think he'd done about 7 million. Now, that's a one-off case. I'm not saying it's going to happen every time. But one of the other things I noticed about doing stuff domestically as well, because you've got Alibaba and the Chinese are very keen to do business with you. In the US, I'm sure this is the same, but in the UK, it's like people do not give a shit. Right? It's like you have to chase them, you have to phone them, you have to email them, you have to do a Google search. It could be a real nightmare. It's almost like people are anti doing business. And then you look at it like what the costs are going to be. But it's a grind, but it can be achieved. It's like one of our products, we've done what's called a bill of materials, and we bring in all of our elements together and bring them to our supplier. But because we went to the different suppliers ourselves, we spoke to each component supplier, negotiated deals based on MOQs, etc. And little things like, let's just say you've got bottles. There's one of the bottles I was looking at in the UK. I would have had a minimum MOQ of 66,000. So I said, great, give me your distributors' details. They gave me a list of 14 distributors, and then I asked all the distributors, do they carry this specific bottle, which they did, and then I negotiated with them. So if one goes out of stock, I go to the next one. If that one goes out of stock, I go to the third one. If the fourth one goes out, I'm screwed. But you see where I'm coming from. I try to work out a way of dealing with this, but it's more painful. It's not like you jump on Alibaba and everyone's willing to do business. You do this in the UK. It's a bit like with going off on a tangent here, like wholesale. Wholesale in the US is a completely different game to the UK. It's very, very difficult to make work in the UK, and everyone is completely anti-Amazon. They almost slam the phone down. They're not interested in talking to you. So it works differently in each market, but if you put the grind in, it makes a difference, because again, you start to build a moat around things, because people will go, how can they build that product in the UK? It's too expensive. In some cases, it can be. The product that we looked at nearly fell over a few times over a period of months. But as we went through one supplier after another, and built up a bill of material, run a spreadsheet for this, we found each component and broke it down, and shaved off the price. Because if you go to one of these companies out there that do private labeling for you, let's just say you've got a product, they might say to you, we can put all this together for you for £5 or £6, but you might be able to get it at a third of that price or a bit higher, because you went and sourced all those individual elements. It's the same like with this supplier who's got the main component, like that goes into your product. If you get them to supply every single component, they're going to put a bit on for themselves, because it's them who's got to organise it and bring it all in. But if you bring it all in and just go, I just want the raw material, and I'll give you all the elements that make up this packaging, what price can you do then? And that's how you start to break out your costs, and that's how you start to reduce the costs, and that's how you can become a bit more competitive.
Kind of piggyback on what you're saying too. Every one of those steps that you have to take, every different kind of hurdle that you have to jump, does it build your moat that much bigger? But that's the kind of thing that can turn your business from a 3 times net income valued business to like a 4 times to 5 times more valuable your business is. And so if you are building your business to sell, every one of these moats is just going to help you with your valuation that much more and make it that much more lucrative to someone who wants to buy it. No one wants to buy a company that just sells a bunch of generic iPhone cases, because they could just spend the same amount of money and just build their own business. But when you've done all the hard work and finding the suppliers, and like you have like found multiple different suppliers for one product, that's the kind of stuff that potential buyer is going to love and really give you that like premium valuation for your business when you want to sell it.
Yeah, because I think everyone talks about building the brand, but I would say build a reoccurring economic engine. So if you can go after and get that customer once and don't have to pay for the acquisition path over and over again for them, that's a big win for you, because you start to have a bit of reoccurring comfort in terms of your income, especially like on Amazon, you've got, say, subscribe and save. But if you do it on your own website, then they join your list and they come back and they buy your product next month, if that's the kind of product that runs out in 30 days. I mean, how many, going back to your 3D printing peripheral elements, how long would they last generally?
That's the whole thing, is that we never know. For some people, a kilogram could last them a month. For
Yeah.
some people, they could use it in the first hour of having it, depending on how they're printing. And so when we would see people buying our stuff with like .edu websites and see that they're from universities and such, we made a point to kind of follow up, especially, and be like, hey, everything great, everything worked fine, especially on our website, not as much on Amazon. Yeah. But yeah, we knew that it was just very, very important to us to get clients that way. I also had a virtual assistant for that specific product give me a list of like the head of purchasing or like the head of engineering at as many universities as they could find. Yeah. And from there, we started a cold email saying, hey, we're USA Filament. We sell 3D filament. We chose the brand name USA Filament to give that much more trust, saying that we're just not selling some plastic from China, even though we were. We're the US guys, so you can trust us that much more. And reaching out to them saying, hey, we'll even send you a test spool. It only costs us $10, but if you become a lifetime customer, this is invaluable to us. With universities, some of them, Virginia Tech, say, or like the University of Texas, they may have 100 3D printers. And if they're printing every single class, every single day, they might be going through a few hundred spools in just a day. So having connections like that and really understanding your customer and what they want was really important to us. And so that might not work for every single niche, but really think about who your customer is and what they're looking for and how you can help them that much more.
Makes sense. Cool. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Nothing really besides, I used to be 100% anti-consumables, and like doing anything that's super, kind of high competition and lots of paperwork. I always try to make my life easy, but I'm slowly changing my mind after, hearing all these people with these 8-figure exits, at these different conferences and hearing their stories and kind of, I've been traveling around Romania and Kiev for the last 2 weeks before this, just talking to everyone all day, every day. So I really get to hear exactly how they built their business, what the hard parts were and what the easy parts were. Yeah. And if you're serious about Amazon, you know how the Amazon system works and you got plenty of cash, shoot for the stars. Don't sit there and just keep trying to, private label little widgets. Try to build like a real brand, do everything professional the first time, because when you can sell your business for $20 million, it's a pretty sweet feeling. Yeah, cool. So just the top line down there. So look for stuff with barriers to entry or perceived barriers to entry. Look for regulation where you can solve the problem there. Consider stuff like grocery, which has got sell-by dates, specialized packaging, which most people don't want to touch. If you are going to go domestic, make sure that you speak to a number of suppliers. Expect that it's going to be a grind to get there to find the right ones. A lot of them want higher MOQs, but like I said earlier on, if you want to get around the MOQ thing, ask the factory for their distributors. And if they've got a set of distributors, negotiate with the distributors. Make sure you negotiate with 2 or 3, because if one goes out of stock, you can move to the next one. Again, all this stuff will take time to put together. Let me give an example. Something I looked at and I could never make it work. So I'm happy to put it out there. I was looking at doing like food hampers, but it was so painful to do this in the UK because I actually spoke to people and I said, and I had the conversation on the phone and I'm saying, look, you do all these and and I'm like, well, why don't we work together on this? It's like, oh, I don't know anything about online. It's almost like they didn't want to actually have, I'm saying, look, I want to put money in your pocket. Let me help you. Let me put money, because they solved the problem. I had the money in the distribution. I wanted to do it on Amazon. And I could not get them over the line. And the biggest problem I had facing now was, even though that there's certain foods out there that's 0 VAT rated, what was killing me was being able to put all of these packaged together at the right costs, right? With all of the shipping costs and then having them all assembled. Does that make sense? There was no real way of doing it. And what I worked out, that where it really worked well for, if you're a large confectionery store, for instance, and you've got all this stuff in-house and you can do all of this stuff out the back door. You can make up all these hampers and it's much more cost effective because your costs are incurred from being sent in store anyway. Everything you sell online is a bonus. Does it make sense? Yep, so, 100%.
I spent ages working on that, but there are, you're not going to have a hit every single time. You are going to come up against walls, but I think we're now in an economy now. If you can look for walled gardens, moats, or whatever you want to call them, they are going to put you in good stead. You just got to take on the pain points of it.
No, 100%. Get it to the point where you have such a moat around your business that if you go to any Amazon conference, you can tell people exactly what your product is and show them your brand's listing on Amazon, because you know that the amount of hoops you had to jump through and how big the moat you built, that no way they can ever compete with you regardless if they knew exactly what your product was.
Exactly. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Will, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, we have show notes at sellersessions.com. Everything is documented and broken down into short paragraphs, so you can easily cut and paste. So any information that you want, we've got over 100 episodes there. So go to sellersessions.com.